Okay, beginning with textile in Bombay and Ahmedabad in the second half of the 19th century, and more broadly after the First World War, they were under constant threat from Nehru's socialist state. Thus, Indian society in the decades after independence was based on three pillars: money, feudal connections, and power. Isha's and Bharat Mirla's families were examples of the first. They were old money. The princely families belonged to the second, although they were in steady and genteel decline. Anand's and our family represented officialdom, the third bastion. Real political power soon shifted to the politicians, but barring a few families, not many among them enjoyed the respect of society. My eyes continued to feast on Isha as the earnest young businessman left to find Aditi Malik. I did not follow what was being said. Instead, I felt irrevocably drawn into a strange and magnificent world which was far removed from my everyday life. I tried to make a clever remark to Isha, but the conversation did not flow easily. She pretended to be interested, but I could tell that she was listening carelessly. I was not amusing her. Her eyes were wandering, and soon they came to rest on Anand, who had just walked across the room. She left me suddenly and skipped over to him. Seeing Anand at the center of attention, I was filled with confused feelings. I admired him and felt insignificant in comparison. There was no getting away from my misgivings about myself. I felt awkward and ungainly. I looked at my hands and they were thick and broad compared to Anand's, which were long and fine. Dinner was served late, and it was as brilliant as anything we could have imagined. Soon after the feast, we got up to leave, and as I was gathering my coat and in the vestibule, Isha came up to me with her face perilously close to mine. She said, "Why don't you come and play badminton with us one of these evenings?" "Badminton?" I asked. "I say, you know that we play in the evenings." She smiled conspirationally. "I even know the tree behind which you hide and watch us." I was mortified. The world knew about my shame and I wanted to run away. "Why do you just stand there?" "Because I like to watch you," I stammered. Instead of being angry, she renewed her invitation. "Yes, do come, Amar. We always need a fourth." It took a few moments for the stunning news to sink in. All was not lost then. My parents were saying their goodbyes to Geeti and our hostesses. I was relieved that no one had overheard Isha and discovered my shame. I looked up at Isha and she was beautiful. Both my mother and I were in a trance as we left the party. I felt that a new life of pleasure awaited me. My mother said that if I studied hard, I might become affluent one day and live this sort of life. My father joked that wealthy people always seemed to impress my mother, and he counseled me that it was more important to be good than to be rich. On the way home, we did what everyone does after a party. We gossiped about who was there and who said what to whom. My mother was touched by Anand's kindness and introducing us to the Maliks. "He's certainly very popular," said my mother. He explained that the pictures on the wall were very valuable. I felt them to be quite strange. My mother said, "Neither my father nor mother mentioned that women found Anand astonishingly attractive, which was the real reason for this phenomenal social success. It is more than 50 years since Isha leaned terrifyingly close to me in her damp, mirrored vestibule and gave me the conspiratorial smile its memory had laid quietly in a musty corner of my mind, and I thought I had forgotten it until now. I have seen many, many grand houses in my life, but none has made the impression on me as 23 Prithviraj Road that Diwali evening. Meeting Isha awakened in me a sense of life and beauty, shaking me out of my dullness. But I have realized, like Marcel, that living in the moment is not easy. Marcel yearned to be noticed by the milk girl, but he missed his chance. The alluring prospect of meeting a beautiful stranger is thrilling, of course, but only a few are lucky enough to daily stop their daily commitments and do something about it. It is easier to stay in one's comfort zone. I wonder, however, what if there were suddenly no routine or habit in our lives? Wouldn't life be delightful, particularly if one's life were continually under the threat of death, which, in a sense, it is for all human beings? You would think that the fear of death, or as Kama puts it in the Mahabharata, Karna puts it in Mahabharata, I see it how the world is swiftly passing, would get people going. Ancient Indians were aware of the value of alertness. They believed that a human being was made up of three gunas, attributes: sattva, rajas, and tamas, and one's character depended on the proportion of each quality. A person high in sattva was likely to be more aware, alert, and harmonious. A personality dominated by rajas was inclined to be ambitious, passionate, and restless, and were tamas prevailed. Such a person had a tendency to be dull, passive, and lethargic. The human project was felt they the human project they felt was to try and climb the ladder to sattva through right thinking, right actions, and right food. The Bhagavad Gita emphasized this, reminding us that the proportion was not a given, and with effort one could change one's personality. In my later years, I have come to believe that alertness is not all. I value routine and the habitual ways of looking at the world. However much I may prize being alert to the fleeting world, I don't think exhilaration can sustain me. Excitement can be exhausting, delightful as it may be to live continually under the threat of death. One might expend all one's resources in doing so. So there must be other ways to be deserving of desire than to live only for the moment and for the thrill of happiness that comes from physical and emotional intimacy. Perhaps we need both: habit to avoid the kind of suffering that Isha brought me, and awareness to ensure that our lives are not lived merely as biological organism according to the inertia of tamas. Aristotle, the great Greek philosopher, would have agreed with me on the value of habit. He thought that habit was essential for building character. Only by repeatedly acting in a certain way does a person acquire a certain character, and pleasure results when one acts according to one's character, he thought. These actions were also the result of one's earlier karmic deeds, according to the Hindus. Since karma or calm also means pleasure. Aristotle seems to have offered a nice insight into the meaning of both the Sanskrit word calm and karma. Both habit and attentiveness have their attendant hazard as well. Marcel returns to hotel where he traditionally stayed when visiting the seaside village of Baalbek. He remembers the first time he entered the hotel and contrasts and wilderness and weirdness of that first experience with the relaxed comfort he now feels. This time, on the contrary, I had felt the almost too soothing pleasure of passing up through a hotel that I knew where I felt at home. Must I know? I had asked myself, go always to new hotels where I shall be dining for the first time, where habit will not yet have killed upon each landing, outside each door, the terrible dragon that seemed to be watching over an enchanted existence. Is Marcel contradicting himself when he makes the dramatic shift from embracing routine to ask if he must now seek out new hotels where habits has not yet had a chance to kill enchanted existence? I think Proust is saying that we need both. We need the unfamiliar, which creates risks and even threatens our lives. We also need the boredom of the tamas, like routine, which is capable of slaying the terrible dragon of the unfamiliar. In order to have both, we must be willing to endure the suffering that the Ishas of the world will bring to us. My parents never did find out quite what my grandmother's lascivious Gyan, ganja smoking Pandit had been up to, but he had given me a symbolic key, and it had opened the door to Kam's secret garden, a rich mythological world quite unlike the prudishness that characterized the daily world of my English missionary school. The Irish brothers would have been shocked to learn that God had created the world from desire, from his own need, an idea that is so alien to the world of Genesis, where the Almighty has no need or desires. I learned many things from the missionaries, and they also enlisted deep inside me a middle class morality, as George Bernard Shaw called it, which instilled in me permanent feelings of guilt and shame when it came to desire. The Roman Catholic missionaries would have been equally scandalized at the thought that the Creator could feel lonely, split himself, and create a woman in order to be happy. How could God, who was by definition self sufficient, feel lonely? My Irish school teachers could not understand why we schoolboys did not feel shame to express our fears and easily confessed to feelings of lonesomeness. When the boy sitting next to me in class 2 began to cry one day, he missed his mother. Our teacher scolded him for being weak and childish. 7-year-old boys don't cry like this, sissies, he thundered. I was relieved that I wasn't the one at the receiving end that day. I was unaware at the time, and so was the good Irish brother, that the Indian answer to transcending loneliness and becoming independent is to achieve self sufficiency via meditation, with the eventual goal of moksha, liberation, or transcendence from the flawed human condition. The Pandit came into my life and offered a gentle corrective. He thought he thought he taught us that calm is the delight that the mind and heart experience in enjoying the objects of the natural world of the five senses.